What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have an album review for you. And this week is like a little bit slow, so we kind of had to look around for some interesting stuff. And we're going to go over a band that I have heard about, but I have not listened to yet up until right now. And I gotta say, some pretty interesting results with this one.
I actually had never heard of them either up until today. Like, not at all. This wasn't even on my radar, but Nick said, hey, there's a band that's been floating around and people are saying to listen to it, so yes.
So we are going to go over the latest offering from Blackbraid 2. This comes out on the 7th of July on no record label. This is an independent release. And this band formed in 2022 in New York in a place that I forgot the name of, but it had the word mountains in it, and that kind of works with the overall vibe of this. This is obviously their second album, and this is a one-man atmospheric black metal project. The singular gentleman that is involved in this one, Sagaskawa, I believe is his stage name. I don't know, it might be his actual name. He has sort of injected this interesting twist to atmospheric black metal where they work in Native American themes, and I found that very interesting. I heard their first album get talked about a lot, but I'm kind of wary about hype trains, and there seems to be a lot of hype around this. Like, sometimes you get absolutely brilliant bands, and sometimes you get bands like Sleep Token or Nap Ticket or whatever the fuck that band is I never want to listen to again. Now, he plays everything on here except for drums. That is covered by one Neil Schneider, who actually did the production on here. And let's see, describing this band's sound, I mean, it's definitely black metal. I don't know if I would necessarily call it entirely atmospheric, though there are lots of atmospheric elements. But man, it's really riffy. It's very epic. It's very moody and dark. And this album was quite a journey.
And it's not so much in the raw department either, because normally when you think of even atmospheric black metal, you still think of a really raw, natural sound. And it sounded natural, but it wasn't raw by any means. Like, the production is really clean. A lot of warmth to these tones, even though the mood seems to be cold and somber, it's still warm, which is contrasting by nature, but that's where we're at.
Yeah, I was kind of thrown off by that. The guitar tone itself has, a little bit of thickness. It's not entirely gainy or squawky. And there's a lot of low end. The bass is very prominent. The bass drum is very punchy on here. In fact, it kind of bottomed out the speakers a little bit. But, I mean, it kind of has a very natural sound. It doesn't sound overproduced, though this album does sound huge. But the way this album will kind of go from grand epic sounding songs to more minimalistic songs, I don't know, that sense of hugeness is just sort of waning and moving around, and honestly that's one of the things that kept me listening. The opening track, Autumnal Hearts Ablaze, opens up with a really catchy acoustic melody and a little bit of a campfire crackle in the background.
Some wind and some thunder.
Sets the atmosphere right away. And I really kind of just all right, this is an actual musical intro. It's instrumental, and it's not just some sort of meaningless synth, and this melody that repeats is very catchy. I really hope that they bring that into the next song, and they do with The Spirit Returns. And that's instantly something I kind of latched onto, is dude, there are so many bands that will have some kind of pointless interlude, sort of intro, yes, it's sci-fi soundscapes, yeah, but I think the song could have just started out with a little bit of that and just kind of got right to it.
Yeah, normally interludes in 90% of, I think, of what we listen to have, they set the stage for the atmosphere, and it's really just sci-fi sounds and whatever, and that's cool. But if you're going to put melody in an interlude, maybe have it tie in, and this guy does that with no issues whatsoever, and I fucking love it.
And he does on all of them, because there are multiple instrumentals on here that kind of have a very similar vibe, but work as a great setup to the next track. Spells of Moon and Earth and Celestial Passage do a great job of setting up the next song, but also quiet it down a little bit before the inevitable explosion, because this album gets really heavy. There are great riffs, as well as the standard atmospheric tremolo riffs that kind of feed off that cold, dingy energy. The vocals are exceptionally harsh and very staticky. This has a nice, dark, sinister vibe, but it's also very triumphant. Like, there's a lot of, stuff I would compare to, like, more melodic black metal, like Immortal or Dissection, especially a song like The Wolf That Guides the Hunter's Hand. I really hope they're not hunting wolves, because that just seems kind of fucked up that wolf would do that.
I mean, there's a wolf howl.
Yeah.
But you don't know if he's being hunted or he is the hunter.
Yeah. Or he's just helping out the hunters like, dude, there's my friends, go kill him. He could be a dickhead wolf.
Fuck you.
I never liked my pack anyway.
Now, what's cool about these songs, in fact, the majority of these songs, is it's not the typical tropes of black metal where it's a lot of tremolo that sets up the atmosphere and mostly the song. It's not just blasts and tremolos. There are a ton, and I mean a ton, of intricate riffs and dissonant melodies. The wolf that guides the hunter's hand, like we were talking about. The riff structure in there is fucking entertaining. There is some tremolo, don't get me wrong, but there's chug and there's dissonance and there's melody and there's all the things that I like, but it's not sticking to just tremolo.
I really like the transitions on that song. There's like little nods to Melodeath in terms of the riffing. Like, there was actually a point in here where, if I just kind of switched off my brain and really wasn't like focusing on the fact that we're reviewing this band, I could have sworn I heard like Hypocrisy in there, just in terms of that heavier but very melodic sound. And again, the mood shifting on here is something I really like. The Spirit Returns has a very triumphant vibe to it, whereas the wolf that guides the hunter's hand is a little bit more dark and sinister. And I like this sort of, caveat between the two. You can get these sort of shifts in the same song too. And man, does this band like harmonies, and harmonies that are both folky in nature, but also kind of latch on to like old school trad metal. Like, for example, the track A Song of Death on Winds of Dawn. And that's a little wordy, but that isn't even the longest one on here. But there are some flat out harmonies on here that you would hear in like classic Iron Maiden, but they're played in sort of a folky meter. And when they include that sort of like folkiness, it's really interesting to hear the extra instrumentation come in. And namely, that's kind of more limited in terms of the stuff they bring in. And most of the time, it's like a pan flute or a recorder. And it's surprising how much that adds. Like, there's just this sort of like a tune with nature sort of vibe, like kind of like Panopticon, albeit maybe not as grandiose in terms of the more like US folk elements. Like, this is more minimalist, where the atmosphere is kind of secondary. It's just peppered in to this really glorious fucking black metal.
And the pan flute does a good job to bring about that Native American vibe too that he's looking for, like Spells of Moon and Earth, where it's another interlude. You got the acoustic melody, and then the pan flute comes in and sets the atmosphere. And then it cuts into Moss-Covered Bones on the Altar of the Moon, where it comes in with these tribal drums and feedback, and it does a really good job of building tension to set the mood on this.
Yeah, there's like a little bit in the beginning of that song where it sounds like someone shaking janitor keys, like, the ones on the big keychain. But it's, some sort of like, like extra percussion in there that's really cool to kind of set it up. But yeah, that tribal build-up, like, that was probably the biggest moment here where I really got that vibe in terms of like the atmosphere on here. Because the song itself, while it's very folky, it kind of still feels like, a little bit more like traditional like folk metal in terms of the melodies. It's more mid-tempo, and it kind of has that heavy metal gallop.
Well, it's got kind of a waltz feeling to it too.
Yeah.
Just kind of like, all right.
There's a bit of a swing. Like, honestly, if it was a Corpaclani song, we'd be like talking about like, mugs full of ale and, beating people over the head for fun.
But this is a good example too of bookending the melodies throughout the interludes. Like, again, this is another song where the setup is there, the melody is there, and then it kicks into the full-blown song following the interlude. But this is like a great example of how that's set up.
And the song really kind of hangs on to this like folky melody for the most part. It does break into some faster, more aggressive stuff, which there is a fair amount of like fast, blasty, very aggressive material in here. But it kind of saves that. It's kind of a long build. You have like this more intense moment, and then it kind of bookends you right back to the, party around the fucking fire where we're all drinking and doing mescaline or something.
I mean, it's a 13.5-minute song. It's the longest track on the record, so you gotta have a little bit of room to move and groove and waltz and have beers around the fire and try not to fall in. Mescaline.
Yeah. The thing that I really liked about the bulk of this material in terms of like, atmosphere and atmospheric black metal, because this I would call atmospheric black metal, but again, like it doesn't overdo the atmosphere.
Right.
You know, when I hear that, I think of like, you know, early Wolves of the Throne Room, which I still am kind of like iffy on. I do like a lot of their later stuff though. This still gives you kind of that trancey, hypnotic sort of like just get kind of drawn in feeling, but it also delivers good riffs and good earworms and just solid melodies that, you know, you kind of just want in metal in general. And while a lot of this kind of has that, you know, just again, more atmospheric black metal sound, it does have some really interesting surprises, namely the song Twilight Hymn of Ancient Blood. First off, might be my favorite track on here.
It is my favorite track on here.
Yeah, dude, the opening riff on here was like, all right, I am instantly at home with this because it reminds me so much of Celtic Frost, and I love that band. It's simple, it's more chuggy, more aggressive and groovy, and you even notice a vocal change. It kind of takes on more of a death metal roar. But this has not really appeared anywhere on this album to this point. A lot of this, even the more groovy sections, kind of still have that more mid-tempo black metal feel. And this is just notably different in terms of the vibe, in terms of the aggression, because again, this is more kind of about the mood and such, and you do have more aggressive sections on here, but nothing this aggressive.
It's doomy. There are moments where doom pops up, mostly in the ending, like The Wolf That Guides the Hunter's Hand or Mass-Covered Bones in the Altar, where both of those have like a doomy kind of breakdown ending. But the overall feeling and vibe of this song is doom,
Yeah.
I would say. And then another surprise that's in that song, which I didn't see coming at all, is the thrashy bridge.
Did not sense that one even remotely coming. Like, all of a sudden it just took into like high octane fucking chuggy thrashy riffs, and I'm pretty sure I did a Scooby-Doo
Yeah.
like so it was like I heard that, I was like, wait, what's did you skip the song? What did you do? And it absolutely rips, like energetic, aggressive, violent, and they even throw on Randy Moore from Spirit World to do a ripping solo on it. There's a fucking killer breakdown at the end. This is definitely like the odd fit in terms of the entire vibe of the album, but I just like that sort of energy. I like that sort of surprise in there because it kind of spun this album around for a little bit and was like, man, that is a legit standout track that explores an entirely different dynamic than the rest of the album.
Well, and then the track right after it, too, Sadness and the Passage of Time and Mercy, has this really cool off-time groove to it, which I didn't expect either. Like, these two songs, most notably, I think, are the most different ones on the record. Like, it's got this off-time dissonant melody and a lot of groove to it and a long fade out. Like, there's so much to this song that make it stand out from the others.
And this one actually has like acoustic passages in it rather than having like an acoustic song sort of set it up like some of the others. And I like that dynamic between these more like soft sort of introspective moments to these very grand, very somber moments. In fact, one of my favorite moments on this entire album is where it sort of drops out everything on this song down to an acoustic melody and builds back into the grand, doomy closing breakdown, which has such an infectious melody. In fact, I would say in terms of a flat-out melody on this album, that song is just instant, like an instant somber hook, and I fucking loved it. And while I think that would have been an awesome way to end the album, especially how it has a long fade out in the end, and kind of just walks off in the horizon like, bye, you're an amazing song, I miss you already. We get one extra song, and it is a ripping cover of A Fine Day to Die by Bathory off of Blood, Fire, Death, which is a fucking killer album. And of course, like everything else in here, they fucking knock it out of the park. In fact, it's kind of like thrown off, like hearing how good the production is versus how raw it sounds in the original. It's like, you know, it still sounds really solid on here. But yeah, that riff on that song is one of my favorite Bathory riffs. Blood, Fire, Death was the first Bathory album I ever picked up. So yeah, I was excited to hear that one. And, you know, it's a solid closer too. And as far as like any negatives on here, pretty minimal. I do have some slight issues with the productions. I do think that sometimes the bass drum is a little bit loud. There are some weird bass drops that we picked up listening to it on the speaker. And there are some points where it kind of does drag a little bit. Namely, for me, Moss-Covered Bones and the Altar of the Moon. I think it's an awesome song. And it has a very cool, like almost continuous sort of folky vibe to it. But I feel like certain parts kind of go on too long without changing. Like it kind of just hangs on certain spots. And it kind of dragged at a certain point, but at the same time, I was like, this is still a solid melody, and it does sort of break it up towards the end, so it's kind of a minor complaint overall.
I had to kind of nitpick for gripes myself. The track A Song of Death on Winds of Dawn I thought was a little bit long-winded. A couple of like the melodic breaks I thought just went on a little bit too long, but at the same time it does a good job to build. Also, it's an 11-minute track, so I get it. Much like the song before it, Moss Covered Bones on the Altar of the Moon, being 13 minutes and 30 seconds. There were points where I thought it might have dragged a little bit, but that's a pretty sizable undertaking, too, especially for your second record in, to make songs that long. So it's not really a gripe, but it is kind of, maybe I'm just being a nitpicky bastard. I, too, thought that the kick drums could have come down just a smidge, and I'm a drummer, and normally I like kick drums to have a little bit more punch to them. But there were times where I thought it kind of overloaded the speaker a little bit, and I thought in the beginning where it was a little blasty, I thought it kind of drowned out the guitars here and there. Overall, I don't have a lot of bad things to say, so I guess that brings me to the good portion. Overall, I'm going to rate this 4 stars. Even in the longer songs, it finds a way to keep your attention. The songs are very well constructed. The big dynamic shifts, going from soft to loud to somber to, more intense. Like there's just a good, even mix of fast and slow parts, and the melodies in here are spectacular. There's lots of energy when there needs to be. I also really, again, like the fact that the songs bookend the interludes. Like, the interludes aren't just some melodic stuff that's there just to kill time. Like, it does a good job of building into a song where you can see it come out swinging. There's great atmosphere without the use of synths all the time, and that's really cool. Yeah, I just really liked it. It was a good offering. I was happy to hear this band for the first time, and I'll definitely be checking them out in the future. You should do the same.
I am with you. 4 stars. Solid. Anchored at 4, in fact.
Yep.
I think it could only go up with more listens. I really enjoyed all the glorious songwriting in here. Like, the songwriting I think is top notch, just in terms of like dynamic sweeps, the guitar tone itself being a little bit more warm, the very harsh vocals. I don't know, like the whole thing really works well. And again, as much as I generally bitch about interludes and intros and such, these really complement the songs. It lets this album flow beautifully. In fact, as the album went on, I think it only got stronger. And that is not to like dismiss anything in the front half, because honestly, I would not remove a single track on here. I might trim down some just for length, because they do get a little repetitive, but they're still repeating pretty good stuff, so I can't really complain that much. Hype train is right on this one.
Spot on.
I dig all of this. I am definitely going to check out their first one after this. And I especially like that little twist on Twilight Hymn of Ancient Blood. That was just a fun wrinkle that seemed like it was thrown in just for fucking fun. And believe me, kind of changed the energy in the room when we were listening. It went from like, wow, this is very introspective and dark, to I want to fucking throw a chair now. This is good. I love that. I like little twists and turns in there. The melodies in here are so fucking catchy and spot on. Yeah, this is a must listen if you're a big fan of Dissection, Immortal, but also like, I would even say like Garia and Magua and maybe like Wolves in the Throne Room, Panopticon. There's a lot of different stuff going on here, but I think it's all good. So yeah, definitely check it out. So if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link below to thrallsmetal.com. And while that website is still under construction, it will eventually pop up with probably a new look and hopefully some merch for us to sell you. But our Patreon link is somewhere on our channel anyway. We will eventually have shirts, and when we do, you will know, because we'll do a goofy video for them, and we'll probably give away one in that video. So we'll have that giveaway going, because our current giveaway is over. We hit 15K, and at some point next week, I am going to do the announcement video. So, yeah, thank you guys so damn much.
I can't believe it.
It's ridiculous.
I can't believe it.
What have you done?
15,000, dude. I remember celebrating 1,000 and was like, well, this is it. We made it. 1,000 subscribers. We're fucking cool now.
I don't know about that.
And then 14 more thousand on top of it, putting us at 15,000.
That is how math works.
Well, I know. but I just like counting. And I'm not going to count from 1 to 15,000 because we don't have that kind of time. But what I will say is thank you to each and every one of you.
Yeah, it's surreal, and it is all due to you guys, and plenty more coming on the channel. I know I have like way more collection updates to do because I bought a lot of shit. Big surprise. And Ridley, I'm sure you got some stuff you're working on?
Yeah, I'm working on a bunch of stuff, actually. I can't get into it at the moment, but when I know, you will know. There's some really cool things happening once again. Thralls of Metal has opened up some doors for a few of us, so yeah. There's going to be some stuff coming. You'll see. Anyway,
again, plenty of stuff coming, and, well, you guys get one more big thank you because you all rule, and we will catch you later.